All right, so after April got to be involved and experience the Temazcal ceremony, Indio asked us if we would like to stay in the jungle after the ceremony and partake in some herbal medicine, some jungle medicine. And I kind of knew what he was talking about because I had conversation with Juan the previous week about what that was that he did, and Juan told me it was in fact ayahuasca. So I was kind of prepared for him to ask that again. I was hoping he would because I wanted to try it. I wanted to experience it, and of course not just for the sake of doing something recreationally, but experience it with him, experience it with a very legit shaman in the jungle with his family. So when he asked me, had blankets, jackets, all the good stuff to be able to stay in the jungle overnight, even though it was pretty chilly. So he asked me, I said yes, and a few others hung out. There was 5 of us total that were there. And so if you're not familiar with what ayahuasca is, I think maybe the medical or scientific term is DMT, and I don't know all the science behind it. I don't know exactly what drugs it's related to, but it's a drug that kind of, people say it allows you to use more of your mind than what you normally can in a conscious state. And a lot of people will say that after taking it, they communicated with people in the spirit world and things like that. It's very mind altering type of drug, and I say drug, but the shaman believes of it as a medicine, and it's something that can be found here in the jungle, and it is something that they discovered literally thousands of years ago to mix 2 plants together, and it creates this what scientists now know as DMT. So anyway, after April took the boys back home, there was 5 of us left, and Indio, the shaman, began by saying that this was not to just get high or to trip out. This was very much so being done for the purpose of honoring ancestors who have done it for probably thousands of years, but also for you to be enlightened and for you to be able to connect with the 4 elements of fire, water, wind, and earth, and very much so to use the power of your own mind to kind of steer the path of your life. And so I was very intrigued in this. I don't necessarily, after just a few times of being involved in this, think that this is my new religion or anything crazy like that. But I'm very intrigued, and I think it's something that's really interesting and special to be a part of from that aspect. So he explained that. He talked a little bit about what was going to happen, and then he said a prayer over the bottle of ayahuasca. And then he called me up to take the first shot, and he poured some into a glass, and chugged it back. It was not very tasty at all, to say the least, and it was very bitter and earthy, maybe kind of like beet juice or something like that, but way worse. And so anyway, got it back. All the others took their drink, and then they began playing the indigenous type drumming and chants. And by drumming, I want to clarify that it's a constant beat, just a fast rhythm over and over and over. And the singing going along with it is incredible. It was very special to be a part of that and be able to see them doing that, not performing to other people, but doing it just because that's their traditions. The first round, this lasted about an hour, and nobody was really feeling any effects of the ayahuasca, so the shaman decided that we should probably do another, and everybody agreed, so we did, and continued doing much of the same with the drums and singing. And they passed the drum around and different people sang. A guy named Yeti that works with Juan, he did some singing and he was incredible. And by about another hour goes by and nothing too strong. I'm definitely starting to feel kind of sleepy and starting to have some kind of thoughts racing through my head, but nothing too intense. So the shaman asked if anybody wanted to do another one. And I was game, being a team player, wanted to get the full experience. So I said, if everybody else is going to do one, I'll do one too. And no one else volunteered, so it was just me and the shaman doing the third drink of the ayahuasca. And the third one did the trick, because the next round of singing and drums totally kind of synergistically set me into a very mind-altering state. I was definitely feeling the effects at that point. The drums became so intense and put me in such a trance-like state that I had to walk away from the fire where they were playing and kind of view from a distance. And as I walked away, I started to see specks of different neon lights on the jungle floor. Looking up at the sky, I would see all kinds of different colored lights. There was a full moon, and so there were shadows from the jungle everywhere. And I started to see faces in the shadows that looked like Day of the Dead skulls. And I would look over into the jungle from a distance and see different faces and shapes in the shadows of the jungles and all the different shades of gray. It was a very, very hallucinogenic experience. And that's right. I've kind of tried some recreational stuff when I was much younger, and I don't remember anything like this. This was pretty intense. All the while being very intense, it was still very calming and very overall always throughout the experience very positive and just incredible to experience. After a while, the drumming stopped, and that kind of lessens the intensity of the effect of the ayahuasca. It's incredible how much that's a synergistic effect. So when the drumming kind of stopped for them to take a break, then I came back over to the fire, talked to them, was able to kind of share my experience with them, and they were all amazed. They had all tried it before. This was something that they practice kind of as a cleansing that they do on a fairly regular basis. Anyway, so more of the same drumming and intensity. It amplifies and comes in waves and more hallucinating. I tried as best as I could to kind of connect to the spiritual elements like Indio suggested, but just really kind of difficult to focus on one thing or the other with such a mental state and trance-like going on. After they finally finished all the drumming and we kind of started winding down a little bit, we all kind of made pallets with some massive comfy blankets around the fire and just kind of laid back and looked up at the sky and the stars. And even at this point, I was still hallucinating very much so, seeing stars just flicker in a way I've never seen them before. Stars were constantly kind of swaying. The constellations were all just very apparent to me, and very just an intimate observation of them is kind of how I would describe it. The only constellation I really know well is Orion, and man, all throughout the night I was just able to follow that around the sky as the earth turned, and that was very incredible to experience. The moon, it was a full moon, and of course we're in the jungle with no light pollution, so the moon was just incredibly illustrious and vibrant, and I could observe some very warming, like purplish, bluish colors coming off of it. Just an incredible way to experience. I felt a very strong connection with the Mayan people. I really feel like the ayahuasca is like something that is very deep in their culture that more people should experience. Anyway, later as we were laying there, I saw a kind of wall of clouds kind of roll in. It was completely clear before that, And the wall of clouds, I remember looking just like some Mayan temples, or like some old Mayan ruins, and they kind of floated across the sky. And then just kind of went as fast as they came into my view, but just amazing. I remember the detail of them looking like Mayan pyramids or Mayan ruins. And I remember one other time where we were talking about scorpions in the area, and Indio had mentioned that he had been stung by them a few times, and then afterwards I looked up at the sky and the stars started turning into scorpions. I could see their pinchers kind of come out and their stinging tail, and some of them even kind of turned a greenish color. Incredible experience. I even remember at one point toward the end of the night, Indio almost uncontrollably laughing and talking about how much amazing stuff he was seeing up in the stars, and how he could just like see amazing things that were impossible otherwise. And so he was definitely feeling the effects and experiencing some of the same stuff that I was. So wow, what a incredible experience. They talk about it as being life-changing, almost as being like a rebirth. And you know, like I said, I'm not one to just like dive right in and say that I 100% believe in all of the spirituality of this, but I certainly feel positive about it. I feel like our family is definitely on the right path, and we're doing the right thing here with where we're full-time traveling and what we're kind of doing with our lives here and with our children. I feel extremely appreciative that my family is such a unit, that we spend so much time together, and that we're always together instead of being separated, with me being away for work or traveling or whatever on my own. But I also feel extremely appreciative to have had the opportunity to just go through that experience to begin with, and you know, have that kind of enlightened mental conscious that occurred during the ceremony. And then also a big thing is appreciative to Indio, the shaman, and his family, and Juan David for kind of accepting me in and almost kind of making me a part of their family. I very much felt like a part of their family when I was out there. So just overall, amazingly positive experience.